Hi, everyone. I'm Pip from Seymour Digital Media. You're listening to Know How Marketing Lab podcast. This podcast brings together different experts in marketing from our Facebook group, Cyberpunk Geeks Marketing Mixer. Each week we get on here and we talk about something search marketing like Google Ads or SEO, social media marketing from Facebook to TikTok, or website marketing. If you're a marketer or aspiring marketer, a business owner or entrepreneur, this podcast for you. We're going to share the best SEO, search, social, and website strategies. We share tips and hacks, Google Ads strategies, what's going on in the current market. Each week we discuss something exciting and awesome in marketing. Page builders, and are they bad for SEO? I'm going to ask a lot of questions today. And if you don't know me, I'm Pip, Seymour Digital Media, and this is
Greg. I'm with Original 72 Creative, and we're a full-service website graphic design and digital marketing firm in Vancouver.
Right. And I like to say we're agency owners that collaborate because marketing is a group effort. Yes. And so we're going to run through what block builders are, why they matter, pros and cons, talk a little bit about Gutenberg, and then Greg's got a personal favorite we'll talk about in the end. But this is really, I think this is going to be really helpful for anybody building a website or taking care of their own website, right? Because this is kind of going to go into some details.
I think the topic itself, we were sort of trying to gear it towards how it impacts your SEO potentially. So we'll touch on a lot of that, but also be going through a lot of the detail of the differences between the two options themselves. So,
right. I wanted to bring up every website kind of has a page builder, right? For the most part, like if you get Wix or Squarespace is what I mean, right? Or they use a page builder of sorts, but it's built in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, in every option, there is a way to add content to your pages.
Website. Yes.
For sure. So it's just a case of how each of them do it. And a lot of them are the drag and drop option where you're kind of just dragging things around and dropping it on the page where you want. And then it creates this nice space for you to whatever you drop there to start putting in your text or throwing in images or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So most of them are all like that. And that was actually what was driving WordPress to move away from the way they were doing their content editing within pages because of all of these other options that were popping up, which were very drag and drop and easy for people to use, as opposed to the difficulty that you had in WordPress to be able to flexibly create nice layouts, images within text and headings and certain sections where you're displaying things in columns or not columns and that type of a thing. And this is why they developed what they code named Gutenberg, which is basically the block editor that is native now in WordPress.
Right. Yeah. And so WordPress, just a difference between like WordPress and Squarespace and Wix is that WordPress is open source and Squarespace and Wix are not. And they do the hosting for you, where on WordPress you would do your own hosting, right? So, and then Greg, so this builder block, page builder, drag and drop thing, is that what WYSIWYG is, or what is WYSIWYG?
WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get. Mm-hmm. So drag and drop is maybe WYSIWYG to the max, but no, I wouldn't refer to it as WYSIWYG, even though technically like it is what you see is what you get kind of a thing. But WYSIWYG was a term that started with those single block spaces in WordPress that started to give it to you in a more graphical form. They came up with that term WYSIWYG.
Okay. And so if we go and we talk about block builders related to, let's talk about the ones you prefer And then let's talk about in relation to SEO stuff, like pros and cons. Why do they matter? And does it affect, like, because the difference between WordPress and like the other ones is that you have many page builder options, right? Like Elementor and Divi, Beaver Builder. We've seen
Yeah.
Muffin Builder. Love the Muffin Builder. Sorry, I
I
just
still
think it's
have never looked up what Muffin Builder is. I have not.
it's like the Beaver Builder, which I also find quite amusing as a name. But I mean,
Hmm.
so there's all these builders, and different web developers use different ones when using WordPress, right? Because you've come across a few, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I guess the big difference for WordPress as opposed to some other services is that yes, it's open source. You can choose whether you want to use the native block builder or if you want to install a page builder option like some that you've just listed. Whereas the others, Wix, Squarespace, it's their own system. You subscribe to that, and whatever option they give you, which typically is still a pretty good option for drag and drop, is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
But with WordPress, you can extend and decide which one you want, which one are you more comfortable with. Some people might still love the drag and drop and the page builder experience and like Elementor
Mm-hmm.
over Beaver Builder. But if you're more comfortable with Beaver Builder, they all do basically the same thing, but the differences really are the usability. And if you're comfortable with a certain one and you want to use that on your WordPress site, feel free to use that.
I originally used Origins
Yeah.
or something. I don't. So, and now we're more into using the actual in Gutenberg, right? So, what do you prefer?
Ever since starting with WordPress, have always preferred as stock as possible, without a lot of bloated plugins and extra things. I come from a programming background, so someone like me who can, build specific things into the system to make it easier for layouts and customers to be able to put in their information and have fancier layouts. Whereas if you just had a plain WordPress site with a basic theme that doesn't give you any extra features or functionalities to create the site that you want, it is somewhat limiting. It used to be somewhat limiting in the past. It's not limiting anymore now that the block builder is available and people have access to be able to really design every page any way they like right out of the box.
So,
It wasn't like that at
Are you
first.
moving away from like Cadence? What did you use before Cadence as your builder?
Well, I coded some themes completely from scratch, and then started using Genesis
That's right.
as a framework,
Yeah.
and then built all of my sites as a child theme on top of Genesis. And now I've transitioned to using a really highly customizable theme called Cadence,
Hmm.
which is super flexible and basically being able to create any kind of a looking site that you like.
And it's really bare bones for the code. Yeah.
It's pretty lightweight. It's designed to be highly customizable, but super fast to load.
Hmm.
Not a lot of extra stuff in there. I like it. I highly recommend Cadence as an
Yeah, I
option.
know you're a big fan. And the reason so we talk about these is because the code is what's important when it comes to kind of SEO, right? And the block builders be I think this was a big complaint with Divi and Elementor, right? There's like the more you add, the heavier things get, and that slows things down, right? So you were saying some builders need extra plugins, and so those extra plugins would cause extra bloat. So it's kind of about trying to, you know, keep everything
Yeah.
light and fast, right?
Well,
Especially now.
for one, if you decide to go not with the native block builder in WordPress, it's not like it goes goes away. It's still there. It's part of the system, right? So you're deciding to install another plugin to switch that to be the page builder
Mm.
option, which gets you all of the drag and drop functionality to create your pages with. So that's one. And as you've just mentioned, yes, there's even these page builders. Most of them are, there's a free version, but there's also a paid version which you can install extra things on top of it that would get you even more. So it's just weighing your site down even more. It's making it bigger. There's a lot more code to it to give you this functionality to be able to do the drag and drop page builder
Hmm.
option.
And that, which is a great option. I mean, it's so user friendly, and that's what we need. We need to be able to fix things, do things on the go. The thing about being a marketer, though, is you need to have kind of experience, well, especially in SEO, and your job, and probably Rena's job too. You need to be able to jump in to the back end of a website and understand it, or
Mm-hmm.
try to understand it. And different block builders do different things, and you find things in different places. So got to be pretty versed in block builders. I think that's a good criteria. I actually have 3 articles to share on this topic, which is really fun. I like digging into this topic, actually. It was pretty great. So Greg, pros to using a block builder. Oh, and I do have a question for you at the end about one of my clients, so stay tuned for that. But let's do pros and cons. So pros to block builders: they make things easy for the user.
Yeah, the block builder pros are it's native to WordPress. You don't have to
Mm.
install anything. There are a set number of block options that get you. So if you want to insert a paragraph, or if you want to insert a heading, or if you want to insert an image, or if you want to insert a testimonial or a quote, or like there's all of these basic block options all
Hmm.
baked in to put your content within a page. And those are just content things. On top of that, there's a bunch of options to do layout. So you can create rows and columns and things like that, all natively with the block builder already in WordPress. Now, the
So,
downside
oh, go on.
is that you it's not as easy to use the block builder at the moment as maybe it is to use the page builder. The page builders have been around a long time. Like we've been talking about, they're very drag and drop. You just drag it to the spot and do a couple of settings. The block builder is getting a lot more like that, but the usability of the page builders is still quite a bit
Outshining.
easier for people who don't know what they're doing to be able to just like do things really quick.
Mm. Right.
So that,
Which is important, because you need that balance, right? That's why, I don't know, when people come to you, I don't know if you ever have people coming to you being like, well, should I get Wix or Squarespace or WordPress? I mean, and there's a lot of us that are pretty prone to WordPress, but it really depends on what the user needs. Because if they need simplicity, and like I met someone that gets really overwhelmed with WordPress, and I was like, if you hate it and you have to
mhm.
work in it, why don't do that? Like, just go for ease of use, because then maybe you'll get more out of it. And then, maybe I shouldn't say that as an SEO, but because it is ease of use for the user, because then they'll be able to do more, which can transcend more into better SEO stuff. But I digress. Let's get back to it. Want to know more about SEO? We've got a class for that. Our mission is to educate students about the right tools, techniques, and strategies to grow their businesses using the most up-to-date search engine marketing optimization techniques and tools. Find out more at knowhowmarketinglab.com.
So pros and cons for both. So that was a pro for the native block builder is you're not installing anything extra, you're just using it. The con to it is that it's not as easy at the moment to use as your page builder, right?
Okay.
So that would be a con for the page builder. Now there are what we have now, because we have the block builder in WordPress, there are plugins that will extend and give you more block options to have. So we're
Ooh.
now you're not just native block, you're installing another plugin like you would a page builder, but you're installing a plugin that extends the block options. So it is a plugin. It is going to, add some code to your site. The difference between the two, if you go the page builder route or install use block builders and install a plugin to extend it, is that, and this will be coming into the SEO, big in the SEO point, is that the historically a lot of the page builders, there's so many features and there's so many things you can do in it, and everything loads on the page for the possibility that you might have used something. So that's all getting loaded in the page, whether you're using some feature in it or not. Whereas
Oh,
the block builder and the block plugins, the only additional scripts and things that get loaded if you actually used that block to do part of the layout on that page. So
okay.
the block plugin with the native block builder is a much lighter weight option than the page builder option.
Hmm. Okay. And so your favorite cadence is still a page builder option. However, it's like bare bones. But so right? And
No,
you're
Cadence is the Cadence blocks plugin that I use is a block extended plugin.
okay,
Yeah,
okay. So
not a page builder.
it's not a page builder, but Elementor and
Elementor, Beaver
Divi.
Builder,
Okay.
Divi,
Muffin
yeah,
Builder. What about
Builder.
Origins? Origins seems pretty I guess it would be too. Um
Uh, yeah,
yes. So if there are any we haven't mentioned, let us know. I know one of the blog articles I have did a rundown of all of them. It's pretty interesting. I wanted to kind of talk
no,
about the what they're doing on the background. So it looks like the page builder block builder adds HTML, right? And you get to put your text in, and then the CSS is the positioning on the page. Is that correct? And that's what these builders are helping with. And then the
the
JavaScript. I'm like,
there's a whole lot to unpack there.
right?
Well, you just described the technologies that are used to build a website, basically. In essence, yes, everything that you see on the web could use HTML, could use JavaScript, could and does use CSS for sure.
Mhm.
All of those three things, and each of those options, like all, whether you go page builder or block builder, it's all built using those core three web technologies. The difference is that how much of that stuff loads on the page at one time is sort of what
Mm,
I was referring to. With the page builder option, no matter if you're using a certain feature in the page builder, that coding is getting loaded in the CSS or the JavaScript or whatever of the page. Whereas the block builder, if you don't use the slide block, it's not gonna load the CSS and the JavaScript and anything else for that because it's not present and used on that page. Whereas with the page builder, you are getting basically everything on the page, regardless of whether you've used that part of it or not.
hmm. That's really interesting to know, actually, and that kind of changes, how you really look at them, right? So,
Hmm.
if you were going to recommend to somebody who was starting out in the web design world, or they're a business owner and they're doing their own thing because they're scrappy and they can't, afford at this point in time to hire a web developer. It is their plan one day down the road. What kind of recommendations would you make regarding a builder of sorts and a page builder? Like, how would you direct them?
I mean, if you know absolutely that you're probably not ever going to use someone to help you develop anything, and you are going to always do it yourself, you might be better just installing one of the page builders because they're much easier for you to use and you need to know a lot less.
Hmm.
If your plan for your site is that it will continue to grow and get better and you'll have other people, helping you with it, or eventually like you won't have time and you're going to need a company to do it for you, I would tend to stick as, stock WordPress as you can and just use the native tools to build the pages, and then maybe use one of these extended block plugins to give you more block options.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And then,
and
yeah,
I
that's good
mean
advice.
they are not as easy to use as the page builders, but that's not to say they're difficult. They're really not difficult either. It's just a different way. It's just not being able to drag something over and drop it in the spot, right? The putting it, you have to have a little bit more thought into what you want to build on your page. Do I want 2 columns? Do I want 3 columns? Like visualizing what you want to build a little bit more is what you're going to need to do. And I think, well, actually, I was going to say the page builders might be better in that sense, but even going with the block option, there are new things that are available in WordPress all the time. In our last release of WordPress, just on the 8th, there is the ability to create your own patterns. And so
Ooh,
patterns are a grouping of blocks. Like, so you can visualize
the
creating a
switching.
section on your page that has like a heading and a paragraph and an image, and it's all like you've created it all in a certain layout. Once you have that created, if that's something you want to use over and over on your site, you can make it a pattern so that you don't have to build it from scratch the next time on the next page. You can save it as a pattern, and then when you want to use that layout again that you've created, you can just throw in the pattern that you created and then change the content to what it needs to be
Ooh, I
for that
like that.
page.
And that's the new one. I don't know if I've updated our site.
Well, it's not, the idea of patterns is not new. What's new in the latest release is that you can actually create your own patterns. Previously, patterns were available that were created by other people, and you could
Mm.
look through the patterns and see if there was one that you liked to insert into your page. But now you can actually create your own patterns and use them.
Well, that's kind of exciting. So the
Yeah.
world of websites is, although it's not boring, that's for sure. There's a lot of change and movement as we get smarter. And, this kind of brings up the topic of AI and websites that we should talk about in the future as a topic. I don't know if anybody's interested in that topic. Let us know, because I'm kind of interested because AI is affecting writing. I've seen some websites where you can easily build, but that being said, I would not trust that stuff with a 10-foot pole at this point in time, right? Now, so are there page builders it sounds like you would recommend against? I mean, for SEO, I kind of like to steer clear of some things like Divi and Elementor. I find those maybe a bit heavy, but
Well, I mean, technically, I stay away from all page builders. The only time I use a page builder is if I work on a site that I didn't do and it's already on there.
mm-hmm.
I will
No.
say there is a drawback from going the page builder route. If you want to move away from the page builder, the pages all need to be recreated in the native block option, right? So there is that drawback. So if you go that route, you're sort of locked in until you
You
want to
change.
completely redevelop your site potentially.
I
Now
learned that.
that's not to say that the block builder and the extended block plugin has its downfalls, because if you do use a certain plugin to extend the blocks, well, then those blocks, if you wanted to remove that extended block plugin and use a different one, those would need to be redone also, but only the ones that were part of that additional block package that you are switching away from. So
Mm.
if you're using native block options for a lot of your layouts, they'll still be the same. Only the ones that are the custom blocks would need to change if you were going to move away from a certain block plugin to a different block plugin, which I don't see happen very often.
Well, this is where my final question comes up, that my client question that I was going to bring up at the end, which is, so I have a client and, we do Google Ads stuff for them and they do their own SEO stuff. I've, been hired to consult here and there, but I reached out to them and they're switching their page builder out for
Mm-hmm.
another one. And
From
that,
one page builder to a different page builder?
yes,
Okay.
it just sounds like there was some issue. I think it was didn't work well with WooCommerce or something. I don't know.
Right.
All I know is we got a message because some of our stuff got unplugged, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, right? All of a sudden, like the conversion event tracking we had set up is not working. And so that's
Right.
something we're like, hey. And so this was what they're doing. And so I'm hearing in your voice that you would not recommend doing such a thing.
I mean, I wouldn't switch from one page builder to another page builder. If I
Mm.
was switching away from a page builder, I would go back to the block editor, which is the native option
Mm.
in WordPress.
Yeah. I know when I moved from Divi, and I was warned not to do Divi. And then when we moved away from it, there was a lot of code that I had to sift through to get the text. And that was pretty time consuming and hard, right? So
It's really ugly. Like as soon as you uninstalled Divi back in the day, your website would just show like I don't know gibberish and short codes, and it looked horrible.
it did look
The
horrible.
new options, at least I don't know if page builders still do that. If you uninstall them or deactivate them, how it affects the look, because I don't ever use them.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe with the block plugin that you extend with, it creates code that will still render properly on the front end, but
Mm-hmm.
only display incorrectly in the back end until you switch it out for the different block that you want to move to, as a for instance.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a whole thing, right? These websites. It's a, I always like getting on calls with you because I always do learn something and it's always fun. So, I think we have a thumbs down for page builders and SEO, but a thumbs up for block builders and SEO.
I'm a big thumbs up for block builders because it's just the native WordPress, and it's going to be way better for your SEO and future of your site. I'm not a thumbs down to page builders. I'm a thumbs in the middle
Mm,
person
yeah.
for page builders because, like I said, there is a use case that they are what to go with depending on how you're going to be using your site. If it's
Or
just
where you're
you
at.
and they're easier, then that's definitely the way to go.
You do have to consider that in the process because if you hate something enough, you're going to avoid it, right? And when I don't know, with digital stuff, when you get over stressed out about not being able to do something, I think it can affect your mind. And I don't know, then you get the rage clicks. Nobody wants rage clicks.
Blocks are the future, especially when WordPress continues its path to full site editing themes.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
which
agree
is
with
which
that.
is all going to be block based. It's just everything everything is a certain type of block depending on where it is on your site, and that block gives you a certain functionality. Like a block can be your navigation menu, a block is your logo, a block is all of these
Mm.
things. and WordPress is pushing towards being able to have complete full site editing with blocks.
Right. Right. So it's going to be interesting. We will talk about this more again in the future. Greg, do you know what we're doing for next week?
Yeah, you always ask that, and
I
I
do.
probably
It's a
never do.
really good,
Yeah,
really good one. What is it?
it's not me, which is good. I get a week off.
That's good.
It's Rena actually and a guest next week, and they're doing best ways to use video in your marketing. And I think this is a follow up to her and the same guest. If I remember, it's Nathan.
I think so. Yes, yes, yes. Ooh, I can't wait. I did not read the end guest, but I'm excited about that one. Woohoo. So if you're joining us out in the world on YouTube or on one of the Facebook business pages, know that we do stream live in the Facebook group. That's where we spend most of our time. And the group is called Cyberpunk Geeks Marketing Mixer. And join us next week so you can learn about the best ways to use video in your marketing. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
The conversation never stops in our Facebook group, Cyberpunk Geeks. Join us at facebook.com/groups/cyberpunk geeks to ask your questions, meet new friends, and learn even more about search, social, and websites.